how could I ever imagine going back to eating, being a vegetarian like I was? Because I did have a couple of vegetarian friends, believe it or not, that I was quite surprised. They go, you should definitely go back to being a vegetarian. I go, you want me to gain 42 pounds, be bloated, sick, have my whole back body stiff, my mind foggy, like, you know what I mean? Like that's horrible. It's like getting somebody who's stepping out of a wheelchair. I'm not hating on vegans. If you're vegan, fantastic, do what works for you. And I think it's great you're making conscious choices about what you're eating, because most people don't. Most people are eating Fruit Loops and gummy bears, and there's diabetes. It's a huge problem. So any kind of thing I'm a fan of. But I want to say I have a friend, Brandon, that lives in Australia, and he was a vegan for the last 6 years. And I think partially because of me, I think I got him into being a vegetarian. And he's seen this transformation. I mean, he's also a magician. We're really good friends. We had really great back and forth conversations. And when I was in Maui, I think he called me and he said, I'm having a steak. And I go, what? He's like, yeah, I really want to try this. I remember him messaging me like, every couple of days, goes, I can't believe, I feel incredible. He goes, I got so much energy. My heart's pounding. I feel like I'm like, this and that. And he goes, there's this phase I went through. And he goes, but after a couple of weeks, he's like, this is incredible. I'm not hungry. I feel full. And, it's interesting that I think that conversations need to happen between vegan, vegetarians, everyone should just talk and compare notes and analyze data together. And that's how you kind of get to the truth.
Welcome to the Plant-Free MD podcast with Dr. Anthony Chaffee, where we discuss diet and nutrition and how this affects health and chronic disease, and show you how you can use this to optimize your health and happiness, both mentally and physically. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Plant-Free MD podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Anthony Chaffee, and today I have a really special guest, someone that I've just had a great conversation with off camera and hoping to continue that on here for all of you to watch as well. My guest is Andrew Gerard. He is a magician, a hypnotist, musician, producer, and director, and has previously been on the Chris Angel show as well. So a very well-known guy and has a great story to tell. And I'm very thankful that he's here to share it with all of you. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, Anthony, thanks so much for having me on, man. It's very surreal talking to you, as I've watched so many of your clips and I've heard you talk a lot. So this is great. Yeah. And the conversation we just had, I like to talk and so do you. So we probably should record that, but we'll go through it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So people haven't come across you. Can you just tell us a bit about yourself and what you do?
For sure. Yeah. It's interesting when you hear me you introduce me, because I never actually say, people ask me all the time, what do you do? And I'm like, I don't know where to start, because I do a few different careers simultaneously. So most people would recognize me from the Chris Angel Mind Freak show, season 1 through 3. I lived in Vegas for 3 years there. And that's when we really started the show that became really popular. And and before that, I'm a magician and a hypnotist, and I live in Vancouver, Canada. And so I spent my time performing here, doing theater shows and all kinds of touring shows and corporate stuff. And then eventually I got an invitation to go play Vegas at the Riviera. And at that time, I was actually a hairstylist at the same time. So I was cutting hair during the week, and on the weekends, I would go and be Gerard the hypnotist and do these shows. And so I told my boss at the salon, I said, I got this opportunity. I got to go to Vegas. I want to go for a week and perform. He's like, oh, you can't, man. You have so much work. You got so many clients and people. And I go, yeah, I just got to do this. And he kind of said, he's like, I can't. I go, all right, then I quit. And that was it. And I was doing hair for 12 years. And I had a whole career doing that. But I knew that the power of saying yes was on. It felt like intuitive. I go, I have to do this, because if I don't go, to play Vegas was like a dream. You know what I mean? I'm like, even if it was just for one night, I'm going to go, I'm going to do this and never regret it. And so I went down and performed, met a ton of people. Magicians had come out and seen my show, met other hypnotists, whatnot. Through a good friend of mine, Banachek, who's also on the show, he introduced me to Chris, and they were just starting the show. And I came on board. Me and Chris became fast friends, and I ended up helping produce and create a lot of the magic on the show, and some big illusions like walking on water, and were some of the ideas that I had. And we had a blast filming a show and meeting so many different people. And which in a weird way, and that was like from 2006, 7, 8, so around there. And in a weird way, that's kind of when my transition came from being a meat eater to a vegetarian. Because as people might know, when you're filming 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, you have a chef that's there that goes around with you, and they cook whatever you want that day. Or, there's it's like a buffet of food, so you can put an order in. So I would always, you'd work all day, and then finally at the end of the day, before you collapse, you'd eat. I have like, give me some lasagna and some prime rib and this mashed potatoes, and just kind of put it all together. And being in Vegas, it's really hard to, so I started to put on weight during the show a little bit. And if people who know me from the show just see my face, it looks very different when I was, 35 back then. And now I'm 52. And people actually think I look younger now than I did then. And recently people thought I've had, an actual surgery, like operation or liposuction or something done to my face. And I haven't had nothing done at all. So then I went on from that Mind Freak show, came home, and the next day I got a phone call from David Blaine, who's another incredible magician that everyone I'm sure knows. And I went to New York and worked with him on his special. And then I ping-ponged to another magician in Ireland, Keith Barry. Did a bunch of TV shows with him for about 10, 12 years in LA and Ireland, traveling around the world. And that led to South Africa, to a whole series there, and all around the world. So, and then I kind of became this kind of creator and producer of these magic TV series, and working with talented magicians and hypnotists, and crafting the show from the ground up. And I had no training as a producer or anything. I learned literally on the ground, and then built my way up to being the creator of shows now. And I stopped performing in 2011 on Halloween at 3:00. I got rear-ended in my little sports car by a big truck. And I took a gallon of paint to the back of my head, and it knocked out partially detached my retina in my eye. I've lost 50%, 60% of hearing in this ear, and about 25 in this ear, separated my shoulder, my whole body wrenched, and I had a traumatic brain injury. And so that was a good year and a half going through specialists and concussion therapy clinic, and kind of being taken off of TV completely. I was like on a couch for a few months, and it was there that I think my whole life changed. Like, me as a person kind of changed after that, because I went from being in front of the camera to thinking, who am I? What am I going to be? And after I started to heal a couple of 2-3 years later, and getting back as much as I could. And now I think I'm probably 90%, 80, 90% of what I was, maybe, like quite a bit sprung back, but more on that in a second. And at the time, my wife was a vegetarian, my agent was a vegetarian, and my manager is a vegetarian, and I like to eat ribs. So I thought one night I came home and I said, I want to try being a vegetarian. And Marcy really said, yeah, I'll try it for a week or two or whatever, until I miss meat, because it just intuitively I go, I don't understand eating a meal without the meat on a plate. So anyway, a week goes by, and we do things like veggie burgers and, pizza without, meat on or whatever. And I didn't really miss meat. So I'll do it another week. 4 weeks goes by, and all of a sudden, my wife's like, it's been a month, and I'm like, yeah, this is messed up. I kind of want to go back. I'm going to go get some chicken breast. So I went to the store and get chicken breast. But when I saw the chicken breast, boneless, skinless chicken breast, it's something in my brain. It looked like too fleshy to me, and just the texture of it looked weird. And I didn't want to touch it. And I'm like, in that moment, I was like, what's going on? And so I realized, and kind of being a hypnotist and a magician, I'm like going, okay, brain, what is this? What's going on here? Have I taken on some idea that meat is bad now because I'm eating vegetarian? Is because becoming a vegetarian, and this is just my own journey, I'm not preaching to anybody, becoming a vegetarian is very appealing because there's lots of free stuff. It's like when you get a gift bag and you go into there's a lot of goodies that come with being a vegetarian. Instantly, you're the better person, you're the moral person, you're kinder, you're compassionate. You just walk around and go, I'm amazing. I'm a vegetarian. How could I do anything wrong? Right? Yeah. There's this free part of yourself that you discover. So I remember going, okay, this was interesting to me. But so anyway, my wife at the time, she said, well, why don't you just continue with the vegetarian and see how you feel? I was like, sure. And she was a vegetarian. I was, so we just kind of ended up being a vegetarian. And I did that for like 16, 18 years, so 16 years, I think. And eventually after the brain injury, and I realized, I have to get myself physically back in shape because I gained some weight, and I found it really hard. I was getting tired and exhausted, and I'd, have to have naps in the day, and my muscles had deteriorated. I haven't trained for a couple of years, and I used to be in really good shape. So, um, and eventually I realized that something was wrong. So I went to the doctor, and they said, we tested your testosterone levels, and they're pretty low. And at that time, I'm like, okay, well, what should I do? And they said, well, I think we're going to put you on injectable testosterone enanthate to be specific. So I go, okay, what's that going to do? Well, hopefully. So they gave me some testosterone. And a couple of weeks later, I kind of remember going, oh, that feels better. I feel like I have energy again because my testosterone was low. I think the number was somewhere around 6 or 9 in Canada. The measurement system might be off for what the States is, and it was very low. So I thought, okay, that's what's going on with me. So I kept doing that. But being a vegetarian, being in testosterone, having a separated shoulder, and not being able to kind of work out the same is very discouraging. And I had lots of inflammation in my body. So eventually, fast forward to 9 months ago, my stomach one day just started killing. I had some cabbage and kale, and I just felt bloated. And I remember laying in bed in so much pain, I couldn't roll my side. I was like, oh my, what is this? I went to my doctor. They gave me pills for dyspepsia. Then I went through tests and tested me for IBS, GERD, acid reflux, the whole ultrasound looking for pancreatic tumor, blood tests, all this. And he goes, your stomach's just a mess. And it looks, you're not getting proper nutrition. I'm like, but I'm a vegetarian. I'm the best person how can you say that? I just had a tofu burger. I'm like, what do you mean? So I went home, and I had a dream that I was eating meat. I had about 5 or 10 dreams over the course of maybe 4 weeks that I was eating meat. And it was so strange. I'm going, what is going on? And I told my mom, and she's a yoga teacher, is a very spiritual person. And she said, well, maybe you should listen to your subconscious. And I'm going, huh. And I talked to another friend of mine, Nash, older gentleman photographer that I worked with in the studio. And he said the same thing. He's like, and being a magician, I'm never married to any idea that doesn't serve me. I don't want to be deceived. I don't want to be, tricked or conned. So I go, okay, yeah, I'll try and have some meat. And just to go back, when I first became a vegetarian, by the way, I didn't do it because of any higher morality or anything like that. I wish I did, but I just didn't. That's just the truth. I have to be honest. And I remember meeting a girl that was a vegan. And when she said, you're a vegetarian, and she said, you're a hypocrite, your shoes are leather. And for real, I'm going, shoes are leather. What? Like I'm not eating my shoes. Like what? She's like, no, but they came from a cow. She had made this assumption that I had this like moral high ground with animals, something which, I think the way animals treated is bad in a lot of situations, and that kind of farming. That's a different conversation. And I told her, I said, I'm not a vegetarian because of the reasons that you think. You know what I mean? I said, I have friends that go hunt and kill deer and eat deer, and I'll go with them. I'm just not going to eat it. She was just like stunned. And I realized that not all vegans, but many of them, it can be a very cult-like or very, narrow parameter. Like you got to fit in, you got to think this one way. And I don't like that. I think even when I was a vegetarian, I'm like, you want to eat meat, go eat meat. Now that I'm a carnivore, I'm like, you want to eat tofu, I'll cook it, eat whatever you want. You know what I mean? Like everyone should do what serves them. That's not a crazy idea to think people should be able to make their own decisions on their health. I just think that that's pretty normal. Anyway, to pick it up, I went and had a steak. My buddy John Bryant, who's a famous singer, took me out to the keg and we had a steak. And I went to A&W. I had a A&W patty because it was a grass-fed, free-range beef, and I thought, okay. And I felt amazing. All this idea in my mind, this boogeyman of, oh, what if I'm going to throw up? What is my body going to do? Nothing. I felt amazing. That's what. And I went to bed. I had another one, and I videotaped myself the first 6 times I ate meat, thinking something's going to happen. And I just felt better and better. And all of a sudden, August 1st, we went in our little RV up to Tofino surfing. And I said to my wife, I just want to have a steak, nothing else. She was like, okay. And I just started eating steak. And I said, I don't want any seasoning, I'll just salt it. And that was all I was eating, is steak. And then, a couple of weeks later, I had a couple pieces of bacon and steak. And I felt great. And all of a sudden this water started coming off. And then I talked to an actor friend of mine on the phone after about a month, Colin Cunningham, amazing guy, known him for 30 years. And I told him what was going through. He goes, yeah, dude, the carnivore diet. And I go, the what? He goes, it's called the carnivore. I'm on it. That's all I do, dude. He goes, you got to get the butcher's cut, well, with a chuck eye. It's cheaper. And he tells me this. And I go, what do you mean carnivore? What the hell is this? He goes, just here, I'll send you a link. And he sends you a link to your thing. And I'm like,
Hmm.
oh my God, this is already a thing. So I didn't discover the carnivore diet or training. I was just organically doing it because my brain told me to, and I just naturally gravitated toward doing this. And then I discovered what it was after. And I'm like, oh, so other people do this. And then I watched Michaela Peterson. She had a whole video of line diet, she called it. I'm like, this is like the strangest thing because I didn't have anybody telling me to do this. I just kind of did it on my own. And yeah, then instantly I started dropping weight. I went down from 242 at my heaviest to right now I'm approximately 197. And my blood pressure used to be 160. My doctor was worried about it. I had the onset of fatty liver disease they were worried about. And I went and got my blood tested 4 months after being on carnivore. My doctor didn't even say hi to me when I came into the room. I just sat down. And then he came in after and he looked at me and he's like, dude, what's going on with your blood? And I go, uh-oh. And I go, you tell me. And he goes, I didn't say hi to you because I didn't recognize you. Your face you look completely. I go, what? I go, really? Because you see yourself every day. And basically, yeah, he goes, your blood is incredible. Your blood pressure is like 1/8/74. Your fatty liver, you don't have any problems. You're good all across the board. He goes, this is the best blood work you've had since I've seen you. He goes, what do you? He goes, but your testosterone's higher, a lot higher. How much are you injecting? And I go, injecting. I go, I stopped it 3 months ago. I just, for some reason, wanted just to cancel it out. He's like, well, you're at like 21 or 23 now, and you used to be at like 16 or something like that. And I go, I'm not taking it. And he's like, what? So I'm like, has my endocrine system somehow come back online? Like, and I thought, am I ingesting anabolic steroids from the beef? Because I'm getting all just like grass-fed, grass-finished beef from this single butcher from a family in Alberta. So I'm eating, or so I'm like going, he's like, this is, he goes, so what are you doing? And I said, this is all I'm doing is a carnivore diet. And then he looks at me because I know my doctor is a good friend and he's from Alberta. And he's like, that's the best possible thing you could do for your health. And I went, wow. I was like, okay. He's like, the only better thing is you could go out and hunt your own meat so you know exactly what you're getting. And it's better. He goes, that's, you're going to live to your 100. And he goes, your cholesterol is a little bit high. He goes, my oldest patients have high. It's not bad. And I go, okay. And then so I'm like retroactively playing catch up, going like, how it seems like there's two worlds or two realities here. I go, how do some people know things and some people don't? And then my brain kicks in and goes, this is like a magic trick. Like,
Hmm.
and they don't know how the trick's done. And this is like a weird thing. There's just people that don't have access to all of the data or old data, or they haven't analyzed it properly, or they're too ideologically, you know, narrowed off into this mindset where they can't accept the idea that there might be more than what they know. And personally, I've always gone forward with the mindset that someone I'm talking to or disagree with may know something I don't, and maybe I should listen up and learn. But maybe they're wrong too. But that's never going to happen until you have a conversation about it. So, yeah, it's been now since August 1st to now, and my wife, who's a yoga teacher and a very successful actress in the yoga world, she's a vegetarian when she was up until about 4 weeks ago in Maui. She just came to me and goes, I want a steak. And she's like, she can't believe the transformation of me. She's seen me, just everything so good. And she's just like, and she has, scoliosis and her back is sore all the time. She does yoga. So she started eating meat and now she's on the train with me and she feels and looks amazing. She's like all the collagen. Like, I was going to ask you, I had like really deep set wrinkles here, lines on my face before, and they're kind of gone now. Like I still have some on my forehead, but I could probably find a picture and show you. I look pretty dramatically different than I did. And I'm like, what's going on with my skin? And hair has gotten really thick here. It used to be a little thinner and drier. Now
Hmm.
my hair is growing like a weed. My skin is like way all better. Like I don't have any like red dots here anymore. And yeah, is that the collagen in meat or is it just a
Yeah, it can actually be and hormonal as well. When you get your right balance of hormones, growth hormone, I guarantee you your testosterone is not the only thing that went up. I guarantee that your growth hormone went up as well. Growth hormone is sort of like a fountain of youth. It sort of keeps your tissue rebuilding and healthy and helps it sort of regenerate. And so you have sort of a balance of breakdown and repair. in your tissue, and growth hormone is a big part of that repair side of things. And so when that starts coming down,
Right.
you start repairing less than you're breaking down. That's aging. So our tissue starts to break down and decompensate. Estrogen's important. Men need estrogen just like women need testosterone. And
Yeah.
um, especially like in women, when their estrogen levels come way down, start getting those really deep set wrinkles and those vertical lines around the upper lip and lower lip.
Hmm.
That's from lack of estrogen, and that's important for collagen health and
Wow.
deposition as well. Hair loss can also be attributed to a lot of things, low thyroid, but also hyperinsulinemia. So high insulin, high blood sugar chronically over time is going to raise your insulin, and high
Sure.
insulin. We know about insulin because it lowers blood sugar, and so we give that to diabetics so they can lower their blood sugar. But we forget that it affects over 100 different processes in our body, and if you get that out of balance, it will affect them very negatively. So you can't go through autophagy. That's something that people say, well, you need to fast for at least 72 hours to get that autophagy. And so even people on a carnivore diet, they say, oh, I need to fast for periods of time to get autophagy. Autophagy comes when your insulin is down, and your insulin is going to come down when you just stop eating carbohydrates. So it's not fasting that's giving you autophagy. It's just not eating carbs that's giving you autophagy. We're supposed to be having autophagy all the time. That should just be a normal process. We don't have to do that once every few months to try to revamp and revitalize ourselves. We should be constantly doing that all the time and just always
Right.
do our best all the time. And that happens if you just don't eat carbohydrates. If you're just eating your natural meat only diet, you'll get that. And so we're getting turnover of cells, we're getting turnover of the internal parts of the cells called the organelles, like our mitochondria and so on. And that just makes the cells work better, makes our bodies better, our skin better, our hair better. And a lot of people start getting thicker hair as well. Some people get a bit nervous because they might start losing, especially women, they have long hair, and
Yeah.
they'll say like, oh, okay, it's getting thinner. What the hell's going on? And it can trigger a fallout phase, but it generally then grows back as long as they're eating enough and they're not malnourished.
Right.
It'll grow back thicker. It's just it's not noticeable for a while because the hair's longer, and so it takes a long
No.
to grow in. But after a few months, you have someone look and be like, oh yeah, they have these little new buds and sprouts coming in, and they'll come in thicker and nicer. And
Yeah.
that's what a lot of people notice. So yeah, there are a lot of different mechanisms. Collagen is certainly one of them, but also how your body uses collagen is hormonally driven with testosterone,
Mm.
estrogen, growth hormone, and insulin
Yeah.
as well. So high insulin causes all sorts of problems. You should be at a nice no, normal low level of insulin, call it 5. So you should be at 5, and maybe little variations, little ups and downs, but not very much.
Right.
And then you eat carbohydrates, and it jumps up to 35. Well, at 5, it's affecting all these 100 plus mechanisms at a 5, but then jumps up. Now it's affecting everything to 35. And so now that's all messed up. But then when you're doing this chronically over years and years and years, you get insulin resistance, and you have to have more insulin to do the same job. And so
Right.
insulin starts do the same job for their blood sugar. It's affecting other things far more radically. And so now your fasting insulin's at a 14, and then a 16, and a 20. Hey everyone, really happy to announce a new sponsor for the show and for everybody down in Australia. It's Stockman Steaks, who are delivering high quality grass-fed and finished pasture-raised beef and other meats, flash frozen and vacuum sealed to your door, something that I've been enjoying a lot of myself recently as well. They also have a great range of specialty items such as high-fat keto mince and carnivore beef and organs mince with liver, kidneys, and beef heart as well. So use code Chaffee today for a free order of beef mince or another specialty gift along with your order at stockmansteaks.com.au, and I'll see you over there. Thanks, guys. I had a gentleman that came in 2 weeks ago, and he had a fasting insulin of 72, right? It should never be over 9, right? And so fasting, he hadn't eaten in 24 hours, and his insulin was 72. So he obviously had a lot of metabolic issues and health issues. So yeah, it makes a massive difference, and all of a sudden it hits all those things. It can disrupt your hormones. So high insulin will block the action of growth hormone, and so it can block the secretion and action of growth hormone. So if you have insulin that's too high, you will suppress your growth hormone. You'll suppress the action of growth hormones. So you'll get less IGF-1 and all these other things. And people say, oh my God, you don't want too much IGF-1. Stop eating meat. You're going to get your IGF-1 go up, and that can make tumors grow. Well, it makes everything grow. It makes your body grow. It keeps your body alive and elastic. And if it's too low, that's when you age. You age quite dramatically. So it's not about getting this too high and being like someone with acromegaly or something like that and having those sorts of problems. It's just getting it back to physiological levels. It's just taking the anchor off your back, and so that you can swim, and allowing your body to just do its job. And so you get rid of those things, the insulin comes down, your testosterone will go up as well as a result of that. And you're also getting rid of these hormonal disruptors from
Yeah.
plants as well that will significantly curtail your testosterone. But it lowers men's testosterone. It lowers women's estrogen, because women make testosterone first, and then that gets converted into estrogen.
Right.
But
Right.
high insulin blocks the conversion of testosterone into estrogen. And so as that goes up, as your testosterone goes up, you get less and less estrogen. So people go through early menopause. There's women in their 20s and 30s going through menopause now, having primary ovarian failure. It's like, it's not good.
It's
That's
crazy.
a bad sign.
And it's interesting you're talking about growth hormone changes too, because back when I was younger, I was quite fit and a gym guy, and I noticed when I was a vegetarian, my weight could go up, and I mean, I never thought I'd get below like 220. I thought that would be, but I noticed if I go up or down 10, 15 pounds, um, my body would stay the same, like the same composition, the same outline, same silhouette. I'd either be a skinnier or bigger version, but the same thing. But now the fat around my organs, what's this called? Visceral fat, whatever that bloaty
Yeah.
fat, that's gone. And then my lats and back, like the shape of my body overall has totally changed, which has been really trippy and a little bit expensive, if I'm being honest, because I was like an XL. And then when I lost weight, I'm like, oh my God, I'm a large. I got to go, like my 36 pants, I can go down. I'm getting 34. And I did all new clothes and see a fat clothes, and those go in the bags. And then 8 weeks later, I'm like, these are too baggy. Now I'm a medium and a size 32 waist. I'm going, I got to buy all new clothes again. So, being a film director now, I went to a set sale where they sold off all the clothes for about 300 shows. So I got like new jeans for $5. So I got a deal there, but still it's been tricky. But, the only thing that stayed the same is my shoe size. I was quite amazed but just the way clothes fit now, like little things when you had like having a traumatic brain injury and being really out of shape and not being able to bend down to tie my shoes and stand up without feeling dizzy. Like that's people take that for granted, or having a separated shoulder. I couldn't do this and reach up and get anything off a thing, because it was like, this impingement, where it comes around. So it was really messed up. All of that's gone. And all the inflammation in my body's gone. All that back pain that I thought was going to be with me forever from the accident, where it goes out and I'm laying down for 2 days and baths and ice. Nothing. I couldn't do 3 push-ups before my shoulder would start shaking. I can very easily drop and do 25, 30 push-ups right now without even thinking about it, which is like, it's like getting a second chance. And, it brings me around to when I got in that car accident. A week after that, I was supposed to fly out and go do my own show. And all that, my whole life changed. I had to scramble, and it was a really, really rough period. But now here we are, just a month ago, because I feel like I look good, my confidence and all the multitasking part. Like I had this brain fog after the brain injury. I couldn't multitask. If I'm doing magic, it's like I can't remember, their cards or whatever it is. I'm just like, oh, this is really, really rough. So, but all that seems to have gone. I mean, in a lot of ways, so much so that I did my very first theater show at a 100-year-old York Theater here in Vancouver, sold out show with my friend Paul. And then I did a private party for one of my actor friends, Doran. He turned 50, and it was like 300 actors and directors and stuff, all Hollywood people. They went nuts. And after the show, a guy comes and says, hey, you want to do a TV show? I got, a bunch of actors here. So I'm like, all right. So now, I haven't told anybody yet. This is probably, but I'm doing a pilot now coming up next month for my own show called Gerard Magic of the Mind. And I'm totally back. And it's like, I feel good. I just did a photo shoot and I'm looking at the pictures going, okay, that's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, because that was a done part of my life. I thought, oh no, I'm got a bad shoulder, my back, I'm no energy. I'm chubby now. I got my face is all bloated. I just no, I'm out. I'm too old now. I'm 50 years old, and there's no one wants to see a guy like that on TV. But now I feel fantastic. So I'm actually like getting a second chance at my dream again here. Like this is round two, which is unheard of. And it's like for me, I'm like this never, would have happened. So it's if just that was the only thing, I'd feel ecstatic. But it's just so many things, the like I said earlier in our chat, this feeling, I can't describe it. It was like I had a fog in my brain and I couldn't really focus on anything too hard. And I'd get like, it was just strange. Yeah, even if I slept really good all night, I go out. I remember seeing people at 14 hours and they go, "Oh, you look tired." I'm like, "What?" Like my eyes were, I'm just like, I could never get fully rested. And then when I ate, I'd never get totally full. So now I've noticed my sleep on being carnivore, I sleep so good. I have this warm ball of light in the center of my chest when I lie down. I go, oh, and everything, my mind doesn't wander anymore. I sleep like a baby. And then when I eat, I feel full, like really full for hours. I go, how I ate like, a steak this morning. It's 10 hours later. I feel fantastic. Tons of energy. I guess that's the insulin, just not up and down. I don't eat any sugar. I don't eat any carbs at all. Because I don't really need to, and I think it's it's like you're given this superpower to, like, people think you have a strong willpower to go, oh, how do you not eat pizza? I'm like, I don't want pizza. But how do you not have chips and a Coca-Cola? I go, I crave zero sugar. And they go, how have you got strong willpower? I'm like, it's not willpower. Like, it's the same way that you have a heroin addict that craves heroin. I'm not addicted to sugar or carbs anymore. I don't crave it. I don't even think about it. And as a matter of fact, it was like maybe 4 weeks ago, I tasted a little bit of white sugar just to test myself. And I tasted some sugar on the end of my finger. And it didn't taste like what I remember sugar to be like. It wasn't really like sweet. It was kind of like chemically, like it was very, very, very strange. It reminds me when I tasted Splenda for the first time. I was like, oh, this is not good. I didn't like it at all. I don't crave anything. Like, yeah, being able to not crave stuff, and it's crazy. And I want to say, people say carnivore diet, and to me, when I think of a diet, I think of like, well, I got to stop what the normal regular thing is and do this special diet for a bit. It's going to be hard, and I got to struggle and starve myself, and that's the diet. Like, and it's a bad word because eating this way isn't a diet. It's just this should, for me, it's just my normal baseline. It's not a diet. It's like just the simplest thing. And because diets, you're weighing food and timing your meals and measuring cups and Tupperwares and preparing things and staying. I just live my life. And then when I'm hungry, I eat salted red meat and drink water, and then I'm fine. And that's it. Like, that's it. You know what I mean? Like, how could you be a carnivore diet coach and charge anyone? It's like, it's like, I'll charge you $1. Eat red meat when you're hungry. Go live your life. That's it. You know what I mean? It's like, how simple is that? You know what I mean? It just seems so, I don't know. Yeah, well, it seems so obvious.
Yeah, well, it is, and that's the thing is that I tell people kept asking me, is like, "Well, do you do consultations? Do you consultations?" I mean, I was like, I mean, I could. I'm just going to tell you to eat meat, though. Like that's what I'm going to do. It's just like that's going to be just the whole thing encompassed in one sentence is I'm going to tell you to eat meat and not eat anything else. And so that's why I do them, because I just keep getting people that ask me for these. But I have like this whole big disclaimer and say, listen, this is what I'm going to suggest to you. I'm going to tell you to eat. I think this is the way to do it. I make all these videos available for free. They're all on the internet. Here's a playlist that you should go through if your questions are hopefully answered in there. If they're not answered in there, you have specific things that you need help with, then I can help you after that. But like, you shouldn't pay me, to just tell you to eat meat, because that's not good enough. So I try to like filter people out that they can just look at my videos. And then, so the people that do come to me, they're more specific, sort of health. Their kid has epilepsy and autism, and they're trying to struggle how to figure out how this is going to work for them and things like that. So you're sort of dealing with different problems. They're like, okay, we're bought in. We want to try the meat thing. How the hell do we do this in this situation? And so that can be a bit more specific. But yeah, I agree. It's just that is what it comes down to, is just please eat meat. Don't eat anything else. That's pretty much it.
And I wanted to mention something just so people don't get the wrong idea. And like I said, I'm, people, it's hard to please everybody, obviously, so I just want to say, everyone live your life and do what you want. I'm just sharing part of my life in hopes that maybe that if someone's suffering like I did, and they go, hey, I want to try, and you're better, then that's it. If one person gets that, it's worth it for me. And, you know, my wife, she and I should say this before, when I became a vegetarian, I didn't do it for any ethical, moral high ground. I'm just being honest. That just wasn't where my mind says. I learned a little bit about the, mass farming industry and some of the horror stories. Now it was so I understand and I learned about that, and and that's another conversation. But I wanted to say that when I became a vegetarian, I didn't have any sensitivity towards animals in that way, even though that's what most people do. But now that I'm a carnivore, I'm a very spiritual person. I'm more spiritual now than I've ever been. Me and my wife hold our hands and we pray for and the thanks of this animal's life, and I honor it in a way that I feel like I never did when I was a vegetarian, which is kind of counterintuitive to most people. Think, oh, you're a carnivore. And I think if you learn how hunters hunt, or you know indigenous people, they honor and eat every part of that animal and use the fur. I mean, it's a really it's a different mindset, I think. And my wife, since she started eating meat, she prays it, and she holistically goes, this gives you like a sense of like grounding and not flightiness like she had with being a vegetarian. And both of us actually were technically, I guess, pescatarians, because once a month or so I'd have some tuna. But every time I had tuna, I was like, oh, this is like so good. And that was like the hint to me to go, why is it that when I have a little bit of that amount of protein, that I just feel so good, and nothing else felt like that? And I'm not hating on vegans. Vegan, fantastic. Do what works for you. And I think it's great you're making conscious choices about what you're eating, because most people don't. Most people are eating Fruit Loops and gummy bears, and there's diabetes. It's a huge problem. So any kind of thing I'm a fan of. But I want to say I have a friend, Brandon, that lives in Australia, and he was a vegan for the last 6 years. And I think partially because of me, I think I got him into being a vegetarian. And so he's seen this transformation. I mean, he's also a magician. We're really good friends. We had really great back and forth conversations. And when I was in Maui, I think he called me and he said, I'm having a steak. And I go, what? He's like, yeah, I really want to try this. I remember him messaging me like, every couple of days, goes, I can't believe, I feel incredible. He goes, I got so much energy. My heart's pounding. I feel like I'm like, this and that. And he goes, there's this phase I went through. And he goes, but after a couple of weeks, he's like, this is incredible. I'm not hungry. I feel full. And, so it's interesting that I think the conversations need to happen between vegan, vegetarians, everyone should just talk and compare notes and analyze data together. And that's how you kind of get to the truth, or whatever the truth is, or some objective facts. And I don't think that we have enough time now of people to gather. I mean, people could say, well, my story is anecdotal and yours is too. But we've got maybe 1,000, 10,000, 50, 100. Where do you get 100,000 anecdotal stories? And you have all people with I still have to find some really negative side effects from people doing this. The stories in the comments, and I know you people watching this, the comments, you guys, everyone's like, here's my story. I was diabetic for 40 years. I read them all. I've read every single comment on all your video. It's incredible. Everyone's got the same story. I go, this is like data. This is not anecdotal anymore. You have literally tens of thousands of people now doing this, and all with the same story. So hopefully enough time and science becomes, there is solid science around this, but just the general consensus of the public, it takes, a decade maybe for people's mind shifts to switch over and go, okay, maybe there's another way. Maybe that, the industry that's $1 trillion industry giving us processed sugary carb food so that we get all these diseases and then have to take another $1 trillion worth of medications to fix what we're doing to ourselves. Maybe that's a broken idea. Maybe there's a better way of saying, whether it's vegetarian, vegan, carnivore, maybe there's a better way of eating better food to fuel your body so that you can live a fulfilled, grounded, full life and do things. Because I was in the worst place that was like, I hit the wall, and thankfully my subconscious gave me dreams of eating meat. It was so strange, and I listened. So,
yeah. Well, you like you said, our stories are anecdotal, but then you have thousands more people, hundreds of thousands, really millions of people that are doing this now. But the thing that people don't realize is that the most rigorously studied diet on earth with the highest levels of evidence, with randomized controlled trials, interventional trials, looking for specific outcomes in health and so on, is the ketogenic diet. There are literally thousands of these things.
Right.
The plant-based diets, they're all survey studies, they're retrospective, right? So you have so the nurses studies classic for this, and this is what they'll trot out all the time, or the Adventist trials, all these things basically give you a survey and say, what did you eat last year? How the hell would you know that? I mean, I know that because I've only eaten the
Yeah.
same damn thing every meal every
Yeah.
day for the last, several years. But they're not going to. They're not going to know anything. And then they count processed foods, fast food like pizza, just fast food in general. How many times did you go out for fast food? Oh, I went out 6 times a week. That's meat. Lasagna, that's meat. Pizza, that's meat. Right. So
Yeah.
they're intentionally manipulating this data. The nurses study, I know some of the nurses in the nurses study, and they say, they're like, yeah, once a year you get an email, says like, fill out this questionnaire on what you ate last year. It's like, how would you know that? These people are in it for multi years. Why wouldn't you say, hey, keep track of every meal you eat for the next year? If you could do that, that might actually be some decent data, as long as you didn't count pizza as meat and things like that. But
Yeah.
it's very poor quality inherently. But the ketogenic diet is a very rigorously studied. That's really the only diet that's been studied rigorously to that extent. And it's gone head to head with the DASH diet, beat it soundly. And what is a ketogenic diet? People don't think about that. Well, ketogenic diet just means don't eat carbs. Okay, but that means you're eating something else instead of carbs, right?
Yeah.
What are you replacing it? You're replacing it with fat and protein. Where does that fat and protein come from? Well, you could do it at a plant-based. Plant fats and plant proteins be very difficult. It'd be almost impossible to get enough energy, and you'd have to take copious amounts of supplements to get all the vitamins and minerals that you're missing. Not to mention all the fatty
Right.
acids and all those sorts of things, and the bioavailability and all the obviously plant toxins. It wouldn't be great, but that's not what these studies have used. They used animal-based ketogenic diets. They replaced carbohydrates with meat and animal fat. And so what people don't realize is that those studies, the most rigorously studied diet on earth that has been shown to be the most efficacious for specific medical outcomes, like reversing type 2 diabetes, reversing autoimmunity, and improving health by other metrics, losing weight, losing body fat, as opposed
Right.
to just losing overall fat, because or overall body mass, because people say, oh, wait, they lost weight, they lost 20 pounds. That's great. Ketogenic diet, they lost 20 pounds too. Well, maybe it's just the same. But you look at these other ones, they lost 14 pounds of fat, 5 pounds of muscle, and 1 pound of bone.
Right.
Ozempic is really bad for that. You lose a lot of lean body mass as opposed to fat. You lose fat too, but you lose lean body mass also. And then after 2 years, people regain more weight than they lost. So that's a losing argument. That's literally a deal with the devil. Where it looks good
Yeah.
at first, but then on the back end, you went, wow, I was taken advantage of. With a ketogenic diet, yeah, you've lost 20 pounds, but 25 of that was fat, and you put on 4 pounds of muscle and gained a pound of bone, right? That's
Yeah.
obviously a much better dynamic. So the most, and those are just numbers I've sort of made up, but there are studies that show interesting disparities like that, where these other diets, you're actually
Right.
losing fat and lean body mass, whereas on these animal-based ketogenic diets, you're losing fat and you're putting on lean body mass, and that's an important
Yeah.
distinction. So the most rigorously studied diet on earth is an animal-based diet. It's a meat-based diet. It's carnivore light. It's carnivore with a side salad. That's what it is. And I think that when we get rid of that side salad, we'll probably find that a carnivore diet's even better than that. But right now, today, the most
Yeah.
rigorously studied diet is a whole food animal-based diet that is high in animal fat. And I think when people realize that more and more, and we start propagating that, people are going to start really understanding that there actually is a ton of evidence supporting this.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. It's like a game, because there's so many variables. And like you said, how do you know this, and this, which one of it, you really have to eliminate it down to the bare bones to get the baseline data of going, okay, if we just eat this one thing, like you said, if you'd had it's keto light, a steak with a side salad. And if you said, well, just eat the side salad with one group and then the other group, just eat the steak. And then the third group eats the steak inside, and you'll see really clearly where the nourishment, then it becomes obvious. But it's funny that process, reverse engineering thing is kind of a magician's mindset, because we have to reverse engineer how people's perspectives and perceptions are of the world around them to be able to inverse it again, to manipulate some of those, things. It's kind of like the way we think of reality is like, like a bank, and there's a security guard, but there's kind of corners you can't see, and we got to tippy toe through those shadowy corners where your perception might not be so sharp. And to be honest, a lot of those same tactics are used in advertising and marketing but it's like this little game of reverse engineering. So when you say, yeah, you lost 20 pounds, well, what's the composition of that 20 pounds? You lose 20 pounds of fat and retained all the muscle, or did you lose 20 pounds of muscle? That's a big deal. And I think if you switch that backwards and told anyone, hey, do you want, for $500, I'll sell you 20 pounds of food, they'd say, well, what's the food? Do you know what I mean? You'd be very interested in the content of those groceries, you don't know what you're buying. And it's kind of the same thing the other way around. What you put in your body is going to determine the results. So it's it's a fascinating puzzle. And I think you're right. There's, just time is going to be the answer here to find out everything that people will need to know. But mind you, I've seen a couple of, again, anecdotal stories of people that have been just eating red meat for 50 years. I mean, it's pretty crazy, to think, it's, but I did notice my composition. Like I said, I dropped all this weight, but then I gained back 2 or 3 pounds, but it was like more muscle than fat, because my waist is smaller and my shoulders are much bigger. And I'm like, oh, all my clothes fit differently now. So it's not just a bigger, smaller version of myself. I don't want to be a big fat guy or a skinny fat guy. Do you know what I mean? I want to, and so I think changing your body composition is definitely, protein is the thing with that. So it's, it's incredible. Now, it's been really exciting. And I wanted to say, if you like, for your viewers, I wouldn't be much of a magician if I didn't offer to do a quick magic trick, a little interactive magic.
That'd be awesome.
Want to do that?
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. So I have a little. We're gonna play a little game. Let me go down here. I'm sitting at my. This is my little practice table. This is where I've spent. Can you see that? Okay.
Yeah.
Right here. Yeah. Okay. So we'll play a little game. There's a black 3. That's the 3 of clubs. That card doesn't matter. This card, the red ace, that's the card that you're going to want to follow. Let's say that's the tomahawk steak, okay? And then the 2, that one doesn't matter either. So normally guys do this on the table and they mix the cards up. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do it out in the open here. So hopefully you can see that. You can see the ace right there in the middle. I'll take the 3 and I'll put it here. Here's the ace in the middle. And then I'm going to put the 2 over here. Now, your job, Anthony, is to chase the ace. And you guys at home do the same thing. You know where the ace is right now?
In the middle. I hope.
If I do that and I do that, where's the ace?
Here? My right,
here?
Your left.
Here?
Yeah.
This one. That's the one that everybody says, and they end up going for the 3. And I try to tell you that to try, and we'll do it again. I'll do it a second time. And this way, I'll even give you a hint. I'll bring it in a little closer. And to be honest, this whole thing works because of this ring, and you'll see why in a second. So there's the cards, right? You can see them, the 3 of the ace. The ace is in the middle. So if I leave the ace in the middle, now you know what card to follow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem with it's just like information. Everyone's following the wrong information off the bat. So you can't really make any good conclusions if you're not getting the right data in the first place. Now explain how this works. I'll use the ring. We'll get rid of the 3, and I'll just do it with the ace and the 2. Now watch this. I'll put my finger on the ace. Can you see that okay?
Mm-hmm.
If I turn it over, I can actually pull this card back and push it. It's the old switcheroo.
Yeah, right.
That's what happens here. So you see the card here. If I put the ace here and I turn it down, did you see it that time?
Yeah.
Which way is the ace? Left or right?
Yeah, on the right.
This one here?
Yeah.
No. The ace is here. I told you it's under the ring. That's where Never play cards with strangers. And I wasn't lying when I said that this ring actually is the secret of this whole thing. Because watch, if I take it and I throw it up, it just goes back onto my finger anyway. So that's pretty.
Christ.
Yeah.
That's how the hell did you do that?
Hey, I do magic. You cut up tomahawks with your shirt off. What do you want?
Well, that's it. Yeah, we each have our skill.
There you go. We each have our skill set. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. Well, thank you for that. That was
Oh,
crazy.
yeah, no
Yeah,
problem, man.
wow, Jesus. Well, that's it. It was interesting when you said that, that like, that you came across this and you were saying, thinking like, geez, has this affected me, as an illusionist, as a magician,
Mhm.
have I been taken advantage of? Has someone done a trick on me, and
Yes,
they've hidden the ace, and then you started looking at that, you start
yes.
spotting the trick, and you're like, okay, shit, that's what's going on here. Um, I think that, I mean, well, I wonder how many of these techniques that you use as misdirection that are used in propaganda and marketing and things like that as well. Probably a lot of stuff.
Lots. I'll tell you, I can't tell you how much. I mean, I've done lots of consulting and I've turned down lots of consulting gigs. And I can't say for who, but I'll tell you, there's been companies that say, we'd like you to come and have a look at this and tell us how we could use, language and things. Is it possible to put hypnosis in a commercial? Is it possible to do this? And it's been like, yeah, I don't want to spawn any conspiracy theories. People get upset, but if people don't know that there's companies with billions of dollars to spend to get you to buy stuff, I think that's pretty common knowledge. I think people know
Mm,
that. To what extent they'll go to do it, think of it was you. You know what I mean? And so it's yeah, it's one of these things where you don't have to be a magician. You just kind of have to think like one a little bit. You have to sit back and go, okay, you know, when someone says, "Look, it's a regular deck of cards," right? You go, "Why would he say that? Is that why? Is because it's a trick deck of cards?" You know what
mm,
I mean? It's like you have to kind of, my father taught me, to gather facts, analyze data, and make the best decision you can with those facts, but always be prepared to change number three should you get new data come in. And that's just common knowledge. I think I don't know why that's even any kind under any kind of contention to go, like we should only be doing what's best and right, and everyone should be free to do that. You know what I mean? I don't think that I've never told anybody how to live their life or what to eat. I just do my own thing, and peace and love to all. But it's I think sometimes when people share their stories, it can influence people. Which, by
mm,
the way, in case it wasn't clear, I didn't buy the carnivore diet book or something. I just did this on my own and then discovered what it was after. So you
mm,
can imagine if there's a continent that hasn't been discovered and there's a guy out there with blonde hair like me, he's just going to do this on his own. That's what's naturally going to happen. If you're out in the wild and you don't know the world, you're going to hunt a rabbit and kill it and eat it over a fire. Even if you're a vegan, that's what you're doing. You know what I
mm,
mean? You're not going to walk around plucking grass and trying to, you know what I mean? If I think that it is the most organic, natural, human way of existence. And, I'm sure there's people out there are spiritual that, believe that the world functions in such a way that everything was put here to feed something else. You know what I mean? And I've kind of learned this sad reality that's a big truth, that in order for some things to live, other things die. And I'm not talking about humans, I'm talking about every single animal, every single organism, the whole evolutionary system is fine tuned for that equation.
yeah.
So there is some holistic spiritual aspect of this, of accepting the nature of things.
Mm,
And but I do think that the farming industry needs a whole overhaul, and there's all kinds of, that's, like I said, that's a separate conversation. I don't endorse any kind of cruelty to animals, and I don't think that eating
definitely.
animals is being cruel to animals. The same way that I wouldn't tell a lion, how dare you eat that deer, you know what I mean, or whatever. I mean, this is it's yeah, I think and everyone has to do what's right for himself. If there's people watching that feel like, hey, I feel like exact everything you're saying, but with vegan, good, I'm your biggest fan. I will cook you a tofu burger. I don't have any hate for anyone. So, but yeah.
Yeah. Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys. Well, I think that if we are going to eat animals and raise them for food. I think that we have to be responsible and ethical custodians of those animals, and we have a social contract with them. We have to protect them, care for them,
Yes.
and raise them in a protected, healthy, safe environment, protect them from predators, heal
Yeah.
them from harm, and treat them well, and then have as quick, instant, and painless a death as it is possible to have, which is nothing's perfect. There's no nice way to kill anything, but the methods we have now are as close to instant as it is possible to be. They go out instantly, and they either knock them out instantly and they cut the throat, or they have a pneumatic hammer that just pops out the back of their brainstem, or electrocutes them, or shoot them in the head and they drop. All those sorts of
Yeah.
things very quick. And
Yeah.
there's no nice way to do that, but that you do the best that you can. And I don't think you get to deviate from that. You don't get to harm animals. You don't get to make them suffer. You don't get to
No.
torture them and be
Yeah.
nasty to them. And that's why we have
Yeah.
laws that say that, that say you don't get to
Yeah.
do that. And you can go to
That's
jail, and
right.
you should go to jail for that.
Yep.
But and you can vote with your pocketbook. Like you said, you're going
Yeah.
to a specific rancher in Alberta, and
Yep.
that's what I try to do as well. And I try to source my meat from places that I like how they raise the animals. Not everyone can do that, but the more we do that, the more we vote with our pocketbook, the more people will start adopting those practices that are better for the environment, that are better for the animal, and they're better for us as an end product. And then it becomes cheaper and more available. You were talking about how these companies have billions of dollars in marketing. Pepsi alone has a $2 billion marketing budget. Um, but does that include their research department? Because just Coca-Cola spends 11 times the amount of money on nutritional research than the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, right? So that's just Coca-Cola. That's not Pepsi and Kellogg's and Nestle and General Mills and all these other sorts of massive multinational companies as well.
Right.
Is that part of their marketing budget, or is that to the side? Because that is marketing. They're putting out these propaganda type studies that say that sugar is good for you and helps you lose weight, and all these sorts of things. Just like the tobacco companies who bought into the processed food companies, by the way, they were putting out for decades studies that said, no, 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 smoking doesn't cause cancer, it doesn't cause emphysema, it's not addictive. And of course it is, and we knew that they were lying, and now we know that these guys are lying too, and yet we're allowing them to get on it. They're multi-trillion-dollar industries, just like he said. And
Mhm.
the the sick industry, not the healthcare industry, but the sick care industry, where we just sort of treat and put band-aids on illnesses as opposed to curing them. If you're going to treat an infection, you go at the root cause of that infection, you get rid of the bacteria or the virus, and it goes away and it's gone now. You don't just give
Yeah.
something that just suppresses it and just keeps that as a low grade infection, and it only spreads slowly over years and then finally succumbs and kills you. You treat the bacteria, you kill the bacteria. That's how you treat disease. What we're doing now is we're just managing diseases. We're just
Yeah.
perpetuating them and allowing them to go on, and people die slowly over 40 years. And this was something that was leaked out from a Goldman Sachs meeting, which was it was a slide that said, is it a good business model or a viable business model to cure disease, to cure people's of disease? They're like, no, it's not. You want to treat the symptoms of the disease for life. And if someone gets a disease at 13, you've got them. You got them for the rest of their life, and you just churn out this illness and sickness, and they just so that infection just slowly spreads across their body, and they finally die. But it's 50, 60 years down the road, and you've milked them for every little scrap of that they had during that time. um, just the sort of some of the top 5 chronic diseases. These are chronic diseases. They're called non-communicable chronic diseases. And so
Okay.
what that means is they're not infections, they're not genetic, they're just something that just came up. We don't know what the hell causes them. They're environmental, because they came up in the last 100 years,
Right.
and very significantly in the last 50 years. And so that's an environmental thing. That's not a genetic thing. It's that this is something in our environment's affecting us and we're getting sick. Just like Romans, when they had lead pipes, they started getting lead poisoning, they started getting sick, but it was generational. And so people were just grew up in
Right.
it. So yeah, that's just what it is. You get diabetes, you get heart disease, you get cancer, people get autoimmunity. And that's just the way it is. It's not the way it is. That's not how it's supposed to be. And so it's just that we're used to it now because we're living inside of it instead of the outside looking in, like we can retrospectively with the Romans. But these chronic diseases have just come up and up and up and up and up. And this is why, well, I largely think these are nutritional, but they're at least something environmental. But those chronic
Which can be
diseases,
fixed technically, right? This is something that's avoidable.
yeah, exactly.
It's
Yeah.
not.
So it's
It's
completely
not your
preventable.
genetically. It's not like this is what you're born with. No,
Yeah,
there's nothing you can do. Yeah, I see. Yeah. So
that's
you
it.
think, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And so now the profit incentive for these companies is not to find the root cause of it. Okay, what happened in our environment that changed, that made us sick? Their profit incentive is say, ooh, that let's keep that. That's good. And let's just treat the symptoms of that, right? So that's why you get Humira and all these biological agents to modify your immune system to dampen down Crohn's disease instead of find out what's causing the Crohn's disease in the first place. Or the American Diabetes Association saying you don't need to limit carbohydrates, just make sure you take enough insulin to keep your blood sugar low. Well, of course they're saying that because they're the ones selling you the insulin, right? And so
Yeah.
they want you
Yeah.
to have more blood carbohydrates because then you need more insulin. If you just stop eating carbohydrates, your diabetes goes away, right? And if you're a type 1 diabetic, maybe you need some insulin, but a very small amount. And if you're type 2, generally you come off all insulin and injectables. But just looking at those non-communicable, those are the top 5 non-communicable chronic diseases, these chronic diseases, so things like pulmonary respiratory disease, cardiovascular disease, um, cancer, and mental health issues, and what's the other one? Maybe Alzheimer's. Those accounts, that's estimated to cost worldwide costs on treating those 5, over $13 trillion by 2030, right?
Wow.
So
Yeah.
there
Wow.
are industries getting that $13 trillion dollars, and they have big marketing budgets and research departments that are going to try and push this out there and get people that are very adept at marketing and misinformation and propaganda to say, hey, this is the way to go because it's a $13 trillion a year industry. But it gets worse than that because the other costs are far greater than that. So that's just what we're paying to treat these diseases. But in um, loss of productivity, people being sick, out of work, losing their jobs, all these sorts of things. So and not being as productive at work and things like that. So the loss to the world in productivity is estimated to be about $46 trillion between 2010 and 2030. And then in just real terms, life loss and premature deaths, it was $22 trillion in 2010 and is expected to go up to over $40 trillion a year in 2030. So this is a losing equation. So these companies are making $13 trillion a year treating these 5 diseases. But we as a society, as a planet, we're going to be losing $80
Oh,
trillion,
yeah.
to actually deal with the consequences of these diseases as well.
We we can't even actually really. One thing I know is our perception of money. We can understand $1 million. $1 billion is really hard for
Mm,
us to comprehend. Do you know what I mean? I think that there's a statistic, someone I'm sure will comment. It's something like if you saved a penny and then double it tomorrow and then double that the next day, how long would it take you to get to like $1 million? And the answer is like 30 days. And it says, well, how long would it take you to get to $1 billion? It's like 38 years. It's like, oh, it's a big difference.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a crazy equation. So a trillion is we can't comprehend it. There's not a trillion people in the world.
Mm,
Like a trillion is too much. So when you're talking of multiple trillions, let alone 10, or it's beyond. Yeah, it's a crazy thing. So it goes without saying that obviously the motivation to keep you know to keep this going and to solve it, and that's where I think it has to be. If we feel like it's a big system that's doing that, Well, the only way to break free of that big system is to kind of go, you know, solo and go, okay, I got to do what's right for me. I'm not going to take my health advice from a vending machine or whatever it is, you know what I mean? And just do what serves you. And if that's, you know, I just know 100% that yeah, the gift that I've been given of being able to have a second round at this at you know, my age, it's like incredible. I mean, my wife, my whole family, it's just, and I've had like 6 or 7 friends ask me questions about this, and I don't, you know, my wife tried. Everyone's like, "Why did you push her?" I'm like, "I didn't. She asked me. I don't care." You know, I'm like, she whatever she wants. And being a yoga teacher, she understands there's a big stigma about that. You know, about yoga teachers, you know, that are mostly vegan and vegetarian. But she's, you know, she's a very spiritual woman. She honors and really, you know, pays respect to the animals, that anything that we eat. And there's something really good, even if you're not a religious or spiritual person, the idea of taking a moment, having gratitude for that is better for you. You're a better person for doing it. You will gain more than you can understand subconsciously. You'll have it's better for you in the long run, even if you don't believe in anything. You know what I mean? It's a good state of being. You know, it's everyone in this world could be a little kinder to each other. And I think that you know, a big thing is your mindset. Like I said, I was walking around in this fog, so I was not the best person to evaluate what to do with my diet. I literally, as my subconscious kind of, you know, helped me out, which is funny for someone who's a hypnotist, and you know what I mean. But it was like, yeah, I think everybody intuitively kind of knows where their center is and what that feeling is, of feeling grounded and balanced and breathing deeply. Most of us don't even breathe properly, which is a crazy thing. I'm a big fan of, you know, I don't do breath work or anything like that, but my father passed away February 13th, a couple of years ago, and I got a tattoo to commemorate him on my hand. And I had a dream that I was playing this flute in the forest, and he was in my dream. And so I told my mom about this. And I go, you know, I went and bought a flute. I bought this beautiful Navajo Native American flute, and I learned to play it in like a week. And I went to where we buried him in this ecological forest and just sat there and played. And it was literally, the moment I started playing this, I go, this was my dream. I was literally living my dream that came true. And I wouldn't have done that except for the fact that I'm like, you know, I listen to my subconscious. I truly believe that almost every answer to every question that you have is inside of you already, and that we kind of know that, and that people are we can be really really hard on ourselves. You know, I think people say, oh, I want to get in shape and I want to eat better food or whatever it is, but then they go out and do the opposite. You know, it's like, you're the only person doing this. And as sad as that is, it's actually good news, because there's no black cloud over your head telling you what to do, making you do that. You're the one doing it. And if you're the one doing it, then that means you're the one that could not do it. It's in your control if it's coming from you. There's no external force, no one with a gun to your head saying, eat those Fruit Loops and don't go to the gym or whatever it is. So that's good news. You know, it's very empowering to go, if everything in my life is a creation of my mind and my thoughts, well, that's everything. That's the lotto. That means that now all you have to do is really start having a conversation with yourself and going, okay, hello, me, what do I really feel, and getting in touch with yourself, and then moving forward. And that's kind of how I live my life. I'm very, you know, mindful of everything that I do. I think very deeply for a long time about things before I agree to do something, and it has to feel right and set in my body right. And so, you know, at the end of the day, every day is the best day of my life. I'm never unhappy. I'm happy every day. My wife says I have the happy gene. I'm just like, I only do things I love with people I love. I eat food I love. I go places I love. I don't waste my time doing one thing that doesn't make me ecstatically happy. And I think that that all comes from the idea of you're creating your world with your mind. So be very careful of where you spend your time. Turn off the news, turn off the thing, go outside, take your shoes off, put your feet in grass, feel Mother Nature, Earth, whatever you want to get into that. That's a real thing. And that's, you know, there's a lot of people that sadly, that's all that they really need to do. I'll tell you really quickly, I've had lots of people over the years from doing hypnosis for entertainment come to me and say, oh man, can you hypnotize me to quit smoking or this and that? And I've helped almost everybody that's ever asked me, but for free. I go, I don't want one penny, because the moment I take a penny from you, it changes this whole relationship. And you're thinking that, oh, he's in it for the money. I don't. So, you know what I mean? What do you? So I help people for free. But I had a couple of times where I told people, I said, okay, you want to quit smoking? There's two parts, that the physical addiction to the nicotine, and there's also the psychological triggers and stuff that why you started in the first place, that we have to go back and do all that. So you need to get off the cigarettes first for 3 weeks with no nicotine in your body for the hypnosis to work. So I was like, okay, I think I can do it. Okay. 3 weeks later, because I goes, okay, it's been 3 weeks and I haven't had a cigarette. And they go, well, was it hard? He said, well, the first week was kind of hard. And the second week, I was just making sure to not be around places where it was more. The third week was actually, it was kind of easy. I go, great. He goes, so what do I got to do now? I go, you already did it. You just needed someone like me to give you permission to do it. I said, I told you I'd help you using your mind to quit smoking. And I did. I said, the lesson here is don't hand over authority of your ability to make decisions in your life to somebody who you think is just because you saw me on TV, you think that I can, hide an ace and think like, and this guy's like, so I'm good. I go live your life. And that's kind of what I really feel like carnivore is. There isn't, I'm not going to come, I'm not a dietitian. You're not going to come in and lay down and put things in sensors and take blood tests and map out and give you a scale with Ziploc bags and get you on a subscription to having food delivered to your house and have all stuff. No, go eat meat when you're hungry and have a nice day.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You know what I mean? For me, like, this is what I'm saying. That's what I tell myself. I go, okay, this is what I do. And yeah, it's unreal. It's by far the most effective decision I've ever made. So, and like I said, if new data comes up and I go, I'm in this 9 months now. If I go, oh, it's been 2 years and carnivore's not served me well, then I will do whatever I have to change that or figure out why or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that's that. But you have to embrace where you are in the linear, the chink of the chain of your life, what phases you're going through, right? To fully understand it. So right now, how have you had or talked with anybody that's done this for decades?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's lots of people out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, total now, I've been doing it over 11 years, but that was with a break in the middle. I did it for 5 years and then I sort of slipped off it because I didn't know what I was doing. The carnivore diet I was living ancestrally. I just wasn't going to eat plants because I learned how toxic plants were in college. And then I got back into it sort of 6+ years ago when I realized that no, actually that is the kind of animal we are. We are carnivores, and that's what I was doing, and that's why I felt so good, or probably why I felt so amazing. And then so I cut it out, and sure enough, 2 weeks I just felt like I was 22 again. And so yeah, so I've been doing it for off and on for 11 years. But then no, there are many people. If people just go to there's a couple Facebook groups that have been around for like 15, 20 years called Zero Carb Health and Zeroing In on Health. And they're both led by people that have been carnivores for like 15+ years. And some for maybe one for about 20 years. And then there's other ones that they sort of learn from, the guys who've been doing it for like 50 years. Actually, funny enough, in your industry, the sound technician for the Grateful Dead for years was a carnivore, and he was carnivore for like 50 years. Then he died in a car accident. Super healthy. This guy named Stan Ozlowski or something like that, but he was like nicknamed the Bear or something like that because he just ate meat. He just ate meat the whole time since he was like a teenage, early 20s. I don't know why he started on it, but it must have been from his 20s because he died in his 70s in a car accident. He was actually in very good health, and so he showed up in those forums and was talking about his experience and all the things that he'd sort of learned over the decades. And he's very, very healthy. And you see pictures of this guy in his 60s and 70s, and he's got muscle, big, thick, muscular legs, and happy, healthy looking guy. And then in your neck of the woods, there's a lady named Maggie White, and she has a ranch out in Alberta, just sort of probably near where you get your meat from. She's been a carnivore since she was a kid. She's turning 83 this year, and she was born in 1941. And she was that kid. She was just like me and a lot of us. They just hated vegetables as a kid, just refused to eat them. Her parents were nicer than mine. Her parents let her just say, "Oh, look, she's healthy, she's skinny. Just let her eat what she wants." My parents would not let me do that. They forced this stuff down my throat, and so I had to finish this stuff. I hated it. And when she moved out of the house, she was really just like, yeah, that's an. So she was eating meat most of her life anyway because her parents let her get away with it. But then when she was an adult and out of the house, she really didn't eat it. And so she is a rancher out there. She first was going to veterinary school in the 1950s, and then decided that she actually just she wanted her own animals. She didn't want to work on other people's animals. So she dropped out of veterinary school sort of halfway through, went out and hopped on as a ranch hand to this big remote ranch out in BC. She actually went to UBC for veterinary school
Oh,
back in the 50s. Yeah.
wow. Wow.
And then she was out there as a ranch hand and just in the middle of the nowhere. I think like Kamloops was something like 40 minutes
Yeah.
away or something. So it was really out there. And
Oh, yeah.
and so you couldn't go to the store. You couldn't buy anything. Whatever you ate, you had to grow or raise yourself. And so the
Mhm.
people that ate that they obviously there was beef available and they go hunting and get, wild game. But if you wanted vegetables, you had to grow them. And she's like, I'll be damned if I'm going to grow vegetables. I don't even want them. And so she just ate meat from then on. And so it's like 65 plus years as an adult. And she was just eating meat, wild game, raising her own beef. But, the beef industry is difficult. And in Canada, they're making it very hard on her. So she was always so poor that she couldn't even afford to buy her own meat to keep one cow back for her and her family. They couldn't afford to do that. They
Wow.
had to sell it. And so they lived on wild game. So they were hunting elk and moose and deer and things like that. And that's basically what they ate year round is the wild game that they hunted and raised all her kids on just wild game mostly and eggs
Yeah.
and things like that.
Unreal. Wow.
Yeah.
My wife eats bison,
Mm,
which is she gets it's field harvested bison.
mm,
So I guess bison aren't domesticated, so they can't be like corralled. They just live out in the field, and then they
yeah.
live a longer life. And yeah, so she's talking with a company now that was, I think they're in the States somewhere, but they're like, she's looking at like, we buy a quarter bison, so I would have to buy a big freezer. But she loves it. Yeah, for it is a strange thing though, because I used to love eating chicken years ago. I don't mind chicken now and again, but it doesn't do it for me for some reason. I don't know if it's the fat content or there's something missing in it. It doesn't make me, I'll eat it if I have to, you know what I mean? But there's nothing beats a ribeye. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just there's not enough fat in it, which is kind of yeah, it's a strange thing. I couldn't and I like to see other people's perspectives. I love to talk to people who disagree so I can see if I'm wrong or maybe they're wrong, but I'm interested in it and I like the conversation. I think that that's the most important thing is for people to not pick sides or war, but to go, hey, like to have this, open discussion, because I think that we're going through a phase where people are going to learn a lot of new information all
Mhm.
around, and I think that people are there's like this growth that way. But I think I think how could I ever imagine going back to eating, being a vegetarian like I was? Because I did have a couple of vegetarian friends, believe it or not, that I was quite surprised. They go, you should definitely go back to being a vegetarian. I go, you want me to gain 42 pounds, be bloated, sick, have my whole back body stiff, my mind foggy, over like, you know what I mean? Like that's horrible. It's like getting somebody who's stepping out of a wheelchair, not really, but like saying, oh, you should get back in the wheelchair. Like I feel like, I'm hearing impaired. I'm like, this is everything's cleared up in my life except for my hearing, which my hearing loss I can't get back. But that's kind of like having a traumatic brain injury is like an invisible thing. People can't see it. They look at you and go, "You look fine, therefore you're fine." And you're just like your head, multitasking. Sometimes it's like it can be tricky. But I feel more empowered now than I ever have, and more aware and more alert. And that's like the biggest gift. I couldn't imagine telling people what to do to eat when they're saying that whatever they're doing is healing them and making them feel better. Do you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't wish, you know, misery on anybody, So it's like, yeah, I feel like it's this big growth time, and what you're doing, and a lot of people I've seen what's his name, Sean Baker, and there's a girl who calls herself the steak and butter gal. She's really funny. My wife likes her. We watch her little shorts. But I think it's interesting because just talking about this and putting it out there, is great because it's making people interested in it, and it's I can't imagine. I 3 or 4 friends of mine have been like, dude, I'm just eating meat. I feel amazing. All this, they're having the same stories. I'm like, I know everyone seems to have the exact same story. So, I until yeah, well, the future is going to be interesting. It remains to be seen what happens. But I want to thank you for having me on and giving me the chance to, and it's not like, like I said, I'm just a guy that had a dream and ate some meat, and now I'm a better guy,
Yeah.
So I'm no authority on anything. So I'm not, I'll leave that up to you guys. So
Yeah. Well, but the great thing is that, you were open-minded enough to try something that went against 18 years of your life
Yeah.
and just said, okay, well, try this out. And okay, yeah, that's helping me. And I think that's the most important thing, regardless of ideology. We have to put ideology aside and just say, okay, what is working for my body? What is working for my life? What is working for my family? Because at
Hmm.
the end of the day, studies can be corrupted or they can be wrong or they can just not apply to you. And the only thing that matters is the anecdote, is the N of one. What happens to you? It doesn't matter what a study says. What matters is
No,
what happens to you in real life. What is the real world data? What are the real world results? And me as a doctor, when I see my patients do exactly the opposite of what these people say that they should do and get exactly the opposite results that they think that they would, I have to listen to that. And I can't. I think it's important to treat animals ethically, as I said, but
of
my
course. No.
main ethical duty is to my patients. And so I can't ethically promote a diet to them that I know is going to be inferior or I know is going to cause them harm. For instance, you were talking about, like telling people that no, 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 you can't do that. You need to go back in a wheelchair. And that, well, maybe not that extreme, but it is that extreme
Yeah.
for some people. There are people that are in
Right.
wheelchairs and have multiple sclerosis. I had a lady on my podcast named Sarah. She's a PhD researcher, and she had MS in her early 30s, and she was crippled. She was in a wheelchair, and she was dying. That's all there is to it. And she came across a carnivore diet. She's a PhD researcher, has a PhD in biostatistics. She knows how to read studies because she writes a lot of them. And so she started digging into it and said, okay, no, these guys are onto something. There's something here. And so she started doing it herself. And within 6 months, not only was she out of a wheelchair, but she was back doing ballet. She had been a ballet dancer previously. And
Wow.
on MRI, her lesions and damage to her white matter were resolving. So it wasn't just her subjective feelings. Oh, it's just an anecdote. No, it's objective evidence that this is healing her body. And so, and it doesn't matter if it's anecdotal or not. It happened. That's what happened to her when she did this. That's what's important. It doesn't, nothing else matters. And,
No. No.
and the people that are healing from this, it is dramatic. And so, you know, um, in Canada, I was just, we talked about how different populations, um, if I think this was off camera, we were talking about, why different populations sort of have better or worse times with this, or maybe because of their genetics, should they do a carnivore diet or
Right.
not? And the thing is that if you've had exposure to agriculture for a long period of time, then you at least have some defenses towards these things, but you're not immune to it. Like Dr. Sarah, she was of Caucasian European descent. And so her ancestors had just as much exposure to a agrarian diet as other people from Europe, but she was affected more severely. And eventually these things build up and we all get diabetes and heart disease and cancers and all these sorts of things. But the Native Americans and the Inuit, they've only in the last 100+ years, they
Right.
exposed to this, so they don't have as much defenses, and they get hit very hard with this. And I was speaking to a lady who is Inuit, and First Nation people up in Canada. And is that right? First Nation? Am I saying that right, or is that? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Yep. First Nations, Indigenous people. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she lives up the very northern parts of Canada. So she's in those communities. And she's been
Right.
basically carnivore her whole life. Culturally that made sense to her. They normally eat a lot of meat, but her daughter was extremely sensitive to anything non-meat. And so any sort of plants or anything like that that came in, she'd have seizures and she'd have horrible
Wow.
epilepsy and sensitivities and autoimmunity. And so they just were eating meat, wild game and things like that for at least like 40 years. And so she was very healthy. She was around 60 and looked like she's 35 and like a good 35, she looked very, very
Wow.
young and healthy. And then she said, but she actually had a couple autoimmune diseases. And the thing was, is she used spices. She used spices and seasonings and things like that. And I have a book called The Most Delicious Poisons, which is all about the spices and seasonings and how these are actually the most toxic part of the plant that we're tasting. And our brain's actually responding to this and saying, don't eat that. That's where you're getting this big,
Wow.
explosive, dangerous tasting flavor that we use a tiny little bit of it, and it accents the taste of the meat. And this is actually why we used it, because it used to be the spice trade was all about covering up the taste of rotting meat, and you needed that strong flavor to cover up
Nice.
rotting meat because we didn't have refrigeration up until very recently. So she was using a lot of spices, and then she came across my work saying, hey, you cut all this stuff out and you'll be better. It's like, that can't possibly be. I'm already eating meat. Spices aren't going to do it. But she said, look, I'll give it a try. And after a month, her autoimmunity started receding and going away. Now she's been a year without spices, no autoimmunity, and feels great. But now she's telling me about how I just spoke to her yesterday, and she said that in northern Canada, in the First Nation people, that
Mhm.
there's been a rash of epilepsy in children right after weaning. And so as soon as they stop breastfeeding, all of a sudden they're getting seizures and seizures and seizures, and it's just growing. It's becoming a major, major problem. And she asked
Wow.
me, do you think of why that would be? And I said, well, I would wonder, what are they being weaned onto? Are they just being weaned onto meat? When all mammals, they drink their mother's milk and then they get weaned onto their mother's diet and they eat that diet for the rest of their life. And they wean their children onto that as well. And it should be, but we just sort of feed kids anything and everything, right? So we're not
Sure.
doing
Yeah.
and so, I'd wonder what they're weaning them onto. And, because all these baby formulas are just super high in sugar and seed oils, and also the baby food, just little pureed carrots and garbage with basically no nutrients, but a lot of sugar because it tastes bad. So they add a lot of sugar to it. And she said, yeah, as soon as you said it, I realized it, but that's exactly what's happening. There's a law now in Canada that they have to wean babies onto formula. So the First Nation people are actually required by law to put them onto formula. That's according to her, and I have no reason to not believe her. I haven't gone and checked the laws or anything like that. That's what she's saying. She's saying it's required now that they put these babies on formula, and since they've done that, epilepsy in these children have actually started to rise. So
Wow.
we see the sensitivity of certain peoples to having these things, and that's the only thing that matters. Oh, but this is scientifically tested and blah 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 blah. Doesn't matter. If it's giving these kids epilepsy, that's the only thing that matters. If it's giving you a
Yeah.
problem, that's the only thing that matters. And if you go away from that and you start feeling better on meat, that's the only thing that matters.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, you're right. I mean, you'd be pretty hard pressed to tell somebody that, no, how good you feel right now and is wrong, and that you're on it's wrong. You know what I mean? Like, how could you with a good conscience? But that's the thing is, if, like I said, thinking a little bit like a magician, reverse engineering the situation, you go, well, we have this big system of people creating these foods, but everyone's maybe gut and diet is so different. We are a lot alike, but definitely there's individuality different. So how do they compensate for that? Well, they don't. They don't care. Just blanket across everyone, and whoever gets sick and gets screwed gets screwed. Too bad.
Hmm.
Cash or credit. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. And that, so from the other end of that, you have to go, well, I'm an individual. So what makes me think I can walk into this big box store and just put all this stuff that everyone else is getting, and everyone's going to be the same with their health? That's kind of ridiculous to say that. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
That's just like, it's kind of, when you put it that way, it's like, well, sure, everyone needs to find what works best for them and do it. But that sentence is tricky, because everyone needs to find what's best for them. How do people find what's best for them? Well, you have two ways of going about it. One, you can find what works, but then you can also find out what's not working. So you're eliminating things and adding things. Well, that's a tricky thing. That's like a Rubik's cube that you can never solve, because there's no stickers on the thing. It's just this black cube that you're turning around. And you don't know what's doing what. So the idea makes sense to me of eliminating everything down one thing and then adding things in and ticking boxes, going, okay, even if, and just to be logically consistent, even if you said, I'm going to wean it off and I'm just going to eat tofu, One thing there, I'm a fan of that. Eat tofu and mark good or bad down there, and then add in quinoa and do this as a vegan, and you go, oh, so I'm getting flare-ups with these things, or this isn't working. You know what I mean? Or you might go, I'm actually getting no nutrients from any of this stuff. This is not a good diet. You know what I mean? You need to gather facts and analyze data and make an informed decision. And you can't do that when you're just getting a bunch of stuff in and you go, I don't feel good. I'm tired. My insulin, blood sugar, I'm excited, all this stuff. You need to go about it with a conscious awareness and a goal, I think. And for me, this carnivore diet, which isn't a diet, it's just eating what serves my body best, is the best way of doing that, because I go, I eat one thing right now. That's it. I don't have anything in my cupboards. I wish you could take my computer and go show you. I don't have. It's just meat. It's just racks with salted meat, and that's it.
Awesome.
That's it. And I got water with, and that's it. So, it makes cooking's really easy and everything's really easy, but, and I don't crave anything and I feel great. So I go, well, right now I feel great. So, and actually is a funny thing. I did get this stuff. It's like a greens drink. I got it about 2 months before I started carnivore. So there was about 4 or 5 days where I was taking this green drink in the morning, some, mixed greens thing, whatever, with water.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd take it and have carnivore. And then I stopped the 4 days because I take it and my chest would burn like fire. And I get this stabbing pain in my heart. I'm like, oh God, it was like way too much. I don't know why it was affecting me so strongly, but I just couldn't take this stuff. And it's a popular brand of stuff that a lot of people take. And so I said, okay, that was weird. Then I did carnivore. And I remember after about a month, I thought, I'm going to take like a half dose of this thing because maybe it was too strong. And I showed up, I drank it, and same thing. My chest got tight. I could feel inside. It was not good. It was like I had a sunburn and you're pouring hot water. It was just horrible, like heartburn, I guess, whatever it was. And so I just said, I go, but why am I doing this? Why am I testing it? Because I think that there's something in there that I need, or that I've been told that this is a thing. I'm doing completely fine. Why? So there is a little bit of that societal thing of going, well, you got to eat your veggies. You know what I mean? And I go, well, maybe you don't. You know what? Maybe I don't. You know what I mean? I can tell you what to do, but I mean, for me, I just know it would be really hard. I'd really love to, have a doctor, if there's someone out there that says, well, you lost 42 pounds, you've lost all your inflammation, joint stiffness, you have mental clarity, you're off your testosterone, you're thriving in your career and your marriage and your life, and you're doing better than you've ever done. And this is all really wrong. You need some cabbage. You know what I mean? Like, I'd really be hard pressed to have that conversation. It's just like, so, once again, to each their own. But and because of that mindset, that's how I got here. Because I wouldn't tell everyone out there, you all have to be. Can you imagine saying that there's a meat-only restaurant law in the city? Everyone has to eat meat. If you're vegan, forget it. No more vegetables. You must eat meat. People think you're crazy, but that actually happens. They go, you can't be a vegan and telling me, you can't do it, because when you do that, then you open up the other side to say the same thing back to you, and that's not good. Everyone should be free and fair to do what serves their body and find out what works for them best. And what's true is true, and in the end, that always comes out and will prevail. So at the end, you're going to see, I think I saw the statistic that it was something like vegans or vegetarians, like 86% of them go back to eating red meat. Yeah, someone can Google it and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like, well, it was like 86%. And I go, well, why is that though? Why? Do you know what I mean? There is not a big propaganda campaign out there saying, be carnivore. There is a big vegan push. I mean, there's lots of, there's a big, and still 86% with all that mark, it's still there, 86% of people go back to eating meat. I mean, that's, carnivore doesn't have an advertising budget. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but it does it does have some real life, tangible, quantifiable proof in the pudding that people seem to experience. And I think that that's where the strength lies, is that in the end, the truth always comes out of what's best for you. And I wish everyone the blessing on your journey of discovering what that is. And I'm just glad I was actually a bit pissed off. I go, oh, damn it, I'm 52 and now I discovered this. Why couldn't I have you had it in your 20s? What did you do? You had it. You were so close.
I wasted
you
it. Squandered it. Yeah.
I can't believe it.
That. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, oh my God. If you added up all the ribeyes you could have had by now, it's just crazy.
Yeah. Seriously. And yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, I heard that statistics as well. I saw a study that said that it was like 84% of people that go vegetarian, plant-based, vegan end up quitting. And there was a survey that was done as a adjunct to that study, or um, maybe it was separate. But anyway, there was a survey that's like asking people why they quit a plant-based diet,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
over 50%, so the majority said it was because of health reasons, that this was negatively
Wow.
affecting their health. And so there were other reasons as well, but the most of them said because of health reasons. And then there's the other side of things that, you're vegan, you're taking copious supplements. The ones that aren't taking supplements, they're going to get hurt faster. The ones that are eating a less whole food, because Oreo cookies are vegan, right? They are. They say it on the bag. They're vegan. And so, this big plant-based push from is actually being funded by um, the pharmaceutical industries and the food industries, and even the petrochemical industries are into this as well, because that whole big plant-based movement is they all profit from this. The oil companies profit because the fertilizers are made out of petrochemicals. You want to get rid of them, and they want to get rid of cows because that's where the manure comes from. That's where the best manure comes from. And so
Wow.
now you'll have to just have more petrochemicals. You're growing more crops, and you have less cows and animals to produce manure. You need more fertilizer from petrochemicals. And then the Coca-Colas and the Kellogg's cereals of the world, because they know that when people go plant-based, the majority of them don't go eating quinoa salads. They eat Kellogg's Corn Flakes and other sort of junk cereal crap. And so that's the profit incentive for them. And then obviously, the pharmaceutical industry, they have their own profit motive for those as well. But taking all these copious supplements just to survive, maybe you'll survive longer and do better. But I also saw a statistic. This was just a survey, of course, of people. But 90% of vegans and vegetarians admitted to eating meat when they were drunk, right? And so, which
My
is
friend
hilarious.
did that. He told me, he said, yeah, he goes, I had a burger like 2 months ago. I just snuck it in.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
really? Like,
yeah. Yeah.
oh,
Well, I
huh.
think that's the only thing keeping some of these people alive, and
Yeah,
you were eating fish once a month, and that was certainly going to give you, good nutrients that you needed, and sort of
yeah,
kept you going along for a while. But, you know, you were talking about that doctor that would say like, hey, you've got all these improvements, you're off your testosterone, your life is better, your brain is better, everything's better, but your LDL is high, stop it immediately. And they do that,
yeah, yeah.
and
That's
I'm so thankful that your doctor looked at that and say, don't worry about that. My oldest
right. He
patients
said,
have
this is the
high
best. He
LDL.
told me, he said, this is the best possible thing you could do. He said, you're going to
Yeah.
live till you're 100 doing eating like that. Because I mean, and it's other things too. I mean, I don't smoke. I've never smoked cigarettes, or I don't do any drugs at all.
Mhm.
I love a good Guinness every now and again, but yeah, I don't. And so I think just being healthy is being healthy. I think, life is so short, and we really only get one shot around. Uh, and I want to live a life that is, I'm as clear minded, so I have a real sense of the world around me. I don't want to be in a fog. I don't want to be hungover. I want to experience everything and love every precious second of it. So I think that, I always try and make decisions that leverage that. And it's funny that it just struck me, you're saying like a vegetarian vegan person, like sneaking a Big Mac or a burger. I just had this vision of Sean Baker, hiding out in the public washroom, chewing on a head of kale, going, oh, this is so good. I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. I don't think so. It's yeah, that would be funny though, wouldn't it? It's just like
Yeah,
you see like these vegan influencers doing this sort of things, and then they get caught like eating a steak,
yeah,
or a burger or something when out, and someone takes a picture. I'm like, what the hell is this? And they go,
yeah.
oh yeah, sorry, I just feel so much better, and they have to shamefully admit that they've started eating meat again.
No,
And
no.
yeah, do you imagine that? Like, you're just like, catching me somewhere just like gnawing on carrots, like, oh my God, I just needed this.
Yeah.
I think that would make
Well, you
make
know what?
people
You know
very
what? It's
happy.
weird because I would never want anybody to attack anybody for their dietary, there's no room for hate in this world. And that goes against everything. You have these people that say, well, you should eat this, whether it's there or there. Either way, I just don't think that anyone should be hating on anyone for what they eat, because I always try and be, you know, um, conscious, because I sit here and think I was a vegetarian before, and I would have hated for somebody to come and, you know, attack me for being a vegetarian. Do you know what I mean? I'm on my own journey. You're on your own journey. Everyone's in their own journey. Everyone's going to get to where they're supposed to go eventually. Do you know what I mean? Like that's a part of the whole. Don't rob that from someone. Don't try and take away their learning curve, their experience. You know, it's like with the it's a bad example, but with, children, small children, they try and walk and they fall down and get up or fall off a bike. And you have to let them do that. You can't wrap them in bubble plastic and rob them of their growing experience because they have to do the same thing with this. Like I wouldn't have wanted anybody to, I would have liked to have a ribeye sooner, but besides that, sorry, my light just went out. I got my wife's yoga ring light. I didn't even know how to use it. It's so funny. I'm a director. I'm a photographer. I'm a filmmaker, and I did the worst lighting of any because I don't do this. I don't have a
Yeah.
podcast or anything. So I thought this would be great. But
well, it was working anyway. It was doing pretty
yeah,
good.
yeah, exactly. I think this is the meat gods because the Sean Baker joke didn't land too well. So maybe
Yeah, exactly.
no KO. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, speaking about that as well, you being in Hollywood and being in these people, a lot of plant-based sort of thoughts and things like that in there as well. How does
Yeah.
that go over? How do you have those conversations with those sorts of people?
Oh, well, yeah, it would have been trickier before, but now I've been around for a while. So I have, I'm just like, get me steak, get me,
Yeah.
but yeah, it definitely is, but it's kind of what you say, like there's these people that kind of, since I started eating meat, I have lots of friends in Hollywood. They're like, oh yeah, let's go to this great steakhouse, or they get, but they might not talk well. Like, I don't think that eating meat, it should be like there's something you're ashamed of. Even when I was a vegetarian, I had friends that I'd go with them and they'd eat meat, and I would never go ahead. Do you know what I mean? Like I was a vegetarian. I'll cook your steak for you. I just wouldn't want to eat it back then. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't have any. It wasn't like that for me, I guess. So I don't have. But I think that it's really the mistake of people attaching certain things to their identity, to going, this is me. I am this. You're not that. That's just what you're doing right now. Your career isn't your life. Your life is your career. Whatever your job is, it's just a job. Your life is your life. Don't let that define you. Your diet, that's just what you're doing right now. Maybe you'll be a vegan. Maybe you'll become a vegan. Probably not. But it's what it's who you are. So it's like it's not what you are. So I think that in Hollywood, a lot of people, there's kind of a push to posture to be this person because all eyes are on you. There's a spotlight on you. Things that you say, if you're on TV and you go out and you say, oh yeah, I love my Rolex, that's it. They're going to be there. People will buy Rolexes because someone says that, or they know you wear that. Any of these movie stars, their clothes, they wear everything you say. So it's, you got to be very, in one way, you got to be very careful. But I mean, I'm safe now because everyone's forgotten about me. So I'm just living quietly in Canada.
Yeah.
But I think it's like, the general idea, the bigger thought is to understand that people are different and unique in their own way, that we're all unique in our own way, and that the more freedom that people have to do what serves them best, the better. Otherwise, you're trying to tell everybody to become uniformed into some, be some person they're not, which is crazy, which is exactly what a grocery store is. Everyone in the grocery says, here, this is what you should eat. It's like, what about no? What about I go into the grocery store? There's not one thing in that store that I buy. I don't want any of it. There's nothing in there for me. I go with a shopping cart. I come out with an empty shopping cart. I go to my butcher's. By the way, shout out to Rod from Tango Meats. And yeah. And he's always in there. He's like, hey, it's the best day. And I go and get my meat and, this free range, this family, they're great. Grass fed, beef, and nourish myself with it. And I'm very humbled and have a lot of gratitude for that. And I have more gratitude and more respect and pay, reverence to animals now than when I was vegetarian, which is odd. It usually should be the other way around. It wasn't until I became meater that I honored and have such a deep, profound respect for the nature of things and animals. Which is like, yeah, which people think is usually the opposite thing. I think probably people that are, the indigenous people, the First Nations that hunt, they have a great connection to, the animals that they hunt, and it's there's no reason everybody can't live their life with reverence like that and gratitude. So, yeah. So, I think it's I remain to see. People ask me sometimes, they go, "Do you have a cheat day?" And I'm like, "What from what?" Like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, I have like some what has he got? Some bacon, some pork belly bacon that I put in every now and again. That tastes kind of good, but I mean, pork doesn't really do much for me, to be honest. At the end of the day, beef, like ground beef does. I can have like ground beef with sometimes some sharp cheddar, some really good cheddar. I'll melt on it like a burger. That will be a thing I'd have maybe once every week or something like that. But basically, yeah, I don't. It's such a weird thing. I guess your taste buds and your cravings change when you don't have sugar in your body. I think most of what people crave is because of sugar. It's like an insulin, or it's a spike, or it's an addiction, or it tells you you need more carbs. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I don't know the science of how I eat, other than it works for me. And I go, I think that protein is probably a better fuel source than carbs. I don't think carbs are as efficient of a
Mhm.
fuel source for like how long lasting they are, what they do to your energy, your blood sugar. You know what I mean? You might get carbs and go for a little bit, but then the crash is, bad. I just don't get that with steak. So I think that I'm assuming that that's a better thing. It's a better functioning fuel source. Do you know what I mean? Maybe you can probably tell us.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. When you're not getting those insulin spikes, right? So blood sugar is toxic to the human body
Yeah.
past a certain point. People talk about hormesis. Well, maybe these bad things are actually good for you at certain levels. Well, it's very important to know what that level is. And glucose, blood sugar, is helpful at a certain level, 4 grams.
Mhm.
Not much. And so 4 grams is a
Oh,
level teaspoon, right? And so that's enough glucose to run all the physiological mechanisms in your entire body and brain and nervous system, right? Just 4 grams. And 1 extra gram is a toxic dose to your body that overwhelms your
wow.
body's ability to sort of mitigate the damage from glucose, because glucose is damaging your body. Those carbohydrates get in your body and they damage your body. But it's called glycation. They physically fuse
Right.
to other molecules and damage them. You get AGEs, advanced glycation end products. And if you get just 1 extra gram of glucose,
It's
you get more and more and more of these things and they build up. This is what ends up killing diabetics. This is why they break down, they prematurely age, they have to get
wow.
their toes amputated, then their feet, then their legs, then their kidneys fail, and their heart fails, and they fail, and their
Wow.
brain fails, and you get Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is being called type 3 diabetes. You can get fertility issues because the insulin and diabetes can damage the ovaries. That's called PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, is the leading cause
Mm.
of infertility in women, and that's now being called type 4 diabetes. So all of these things are a consequence of not only high blood sugar, but then what happens when you have the high blood sugar, because our bodies respond to that 1 extra gram of blood sugar
That's
as a
amazing.
toxin, you know?
That's amazing. Hey, I'm just going to hit this light on 1 second.
No problem.
I think there we go. I think it's some light on help a little bit.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
actually wanted to ask you, what is the makeup? I think I'd read somewhere like the actual composition of our body. I don't know if it's precise. I don't know what it is. It's something like, is it like 60% water, 35% protein or something like that? And then there's this very small bit that are carbs. Do
So
you know
it's
that breakdown?
yeah, it's like 70 something percent water, depending on, men
Yeah.
and women, and depending on your fat content, because water, generally, what fat is generally pretty dry. And so they don't have as much. So depending on how much adipose tissue you have, you might have a bit
Right.
less water. But yeah, there's not too many carbohydrates in the body. We have a bit of glycogen.
Wow.
We have a bit of structural components that are used on proteins and surface markers, and but then the glucose
Right.
is 4 grams, right? And then we store this
Right.
in glycogen, and then excess will get stored into fat as well. But yeah,
Doesn't
and
protein
so
doesn't protein turn into uh, um, glucose as well in the brain?
oh, in the body, yeah, it can.
In the
If
body, sorry,
we
yeah.
don't, yeah, we don't really can't really store protein all that well. You sort of
Right.
use it, and if we have excess that we can't, we have a very high demand for protein as well. Though remember that every single molecule that your DNA codes for is a protein, and so those
Hmm.
alleles, every sort of three base pairs that codes for one amino acid. So as be leucine and glycine and taurine and carnitine, all sorts of things. So bang, 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 bang. So it's just these strings of amino acids, and then they fold up in ways and bond together in a certain way. And then that's a molecule that goes around and does work. They're all made out of amino acids. So, people are saying that it was like, oh, well, carbohydrates have the same amount of calories as protein. Is like, that's meaningless because most of those proteins that you're bringing in
Right.
being used as energy, they're being used as structural components to make the proteins and molecules in your body that your DNA codes for. And so you don't use them as energy. So the vast majority of the amino acids that you use are being used to build and run and maintain your body, make collagen,
Right.
things like that, the structural components of your body, as well as the molecules that go around and work inside your body. And then you need fat too. Fat's really your main energy source, fuel source. And you can actually turn
Yeah.
that into glucose and glycogen and ketones, and you can run on that. And then if you take in excess carbohydrates, then that sort of mucks up the whole deal because now you have way more than 4 grams of
Yeah.
blood
You're
sugar
over
in
the,
your
yeah.
body. Yeah.
Oh,
And your body just freaks
that's,
out and goes, "Ooh, we got to get this down," which raises your insulin. And that causes all sorts of problems. That's causing the energy problems that you're talking about, is because
yeah.
the insulin will go up in response to the blood sugar. But insulin will affect actually over 100 different processes in your body and cause a lot of damage. Like I was saying before, it affects your growth hormone,
Yeah.
testosterone, and your estrogen, but your blood pressure and your ovaries and and your brain as well. But just from an energy dynamics point of view, insulin will go up because blood sugar goes up, insulin goes up to get the blood sugar down, but the insulin stays up. It has a long half life. So now the blood sugar is too low and you don't feel.
Mm,
And one of the things that insulin does is it stops gluconeogenesis. It stops the body's ability to make more blood sugar, to make glycogen, to make ketones. And so you're up here and you have this glycogen, and now you're sort of running on this glycogen, trying to keep your blood sugar up, but eventually that sort of fails, and you just feel like crap. Oh, I need to eat more carbs. I need to eat more carbs. So you eat more carbs, and your body goes again like, "What have you done? We just got rid of this stuff,"
yes.
you know.
Yeah.
And
We just, yeah. So you're going around and around, you go, you're in that thing. So let me ask you a question. I'm going to have to wrap up soon because
yeah,
I
no
can hear
worries.
my wife. So, but I want to ask you, I don't know if anyone's asked you this question.
Mm.
From your estimation, either now or in the future, what do you think could be the downside of the carnivore diet?
The downfall of multi-trillion-dollar industries in the processed food companies and the pharmaceutical companies. But the upside to that would be that those industries and those very smart people with very big brains would then go into useful avenues and actually do
Uh,
things that are useful to people, and that money would then be directed towards very useful things that could actually better humanity. So,
right,
it's just like, what do we do about all these buggy whip makers now that Henry Ford has come out and made cars, and we don't need buggy whips anymore? Well, they get new jobs and they reskill, and all that sucks and that's bad, and that sucks for them for a
right,
while. But we ended up getting far more for it because we had cars and those beat buggies. And so I think that's the thing, we have to move forward, and we have to switch the direction of the economy and do it into much more useful ways and
right.
get and at the very least we need to get the hell away from this sick care system, because no matter
Yeah,
what system you have a public system or a private system or some new system that came from space and is even better, no system will bear the weight of this growing burden of chronic diseases. It's just going
right,
up every single year. I mean, was it like, 46 trillion over 20 years, 13 trillion a year just spending on this stuff, and then another 40 trillion a year on excess death and premature death. That's going to crush any system. It's just going to crush everything and anything. So that needs to go. We need to fix that. And as a consequence, um, I think we're going to get, yeah, I think there's going to be many positive benefits. A lot of these industries are going to have to go away, but they're not necessarily going to
right.
go away. They're just going to transition. They're going to pivot.
The transition, well, they say it'll be about the money. And this is the funny thing, like just in a very simplistic, this isn't like this is an honest question, just from a pragmatic sense. I've had people that said, well, they said, red meat's bad for you, eating meat's bad for you. especially fatty meat. You should, if anything, you eat lean cuts of meat. Lean cuts of meat is the best thing for you. They say that's what I've been told. I'm sure lots of people watching probably. So we're told lean cuts of meat are the best thing for you if you have to eat meat, but fatty cuts of meat are bad for you. Why is it that ribeye is the most expensive steak then? Yeah. Why is it that the fattiest cuts of meat? Shouldn't that be just a cheap crap? They go take the buckets of this. It's so horrible. We're throwing it in the garbage. Like, why is it the most expensive? I'm dead serious. Like, I'm not like I'm just like, do they know something out? They go, actually, this is the best thing for you. That's why it's so expensive, but we can't say that. So, or is it like, what's the reasoning behind these fatty, delicious cuts of meat that satiate and are so expensive? Why? If they're the worst thing for you, shouldn't they be just like dirt cheap? Shouldn't they just be like throwing it in the alley in slop bags? Like I'm serious. Like, what do people not ever think about that? They go, yeah, why is the fattiest cuts of meat so expensive? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at marbled meat and you look at the stuff that's not, it's dead cheap. It's like, you can get these blade steaks here. They're super cheap. There's no fat on them. There's no marbling in it. They're not, they're like lean, but it's backwards, I guess. I don't know. I don't know the reasoning behind that.
And then Wagyu, very, very fatty and the most expensive stuff out there, Yeah. I mean, you do get other fatty cuts that are cheaper, like the chuck steaks and the briskets, but those are also very tough cuts as well.
Yeah.
And you have to roast them and slow cook them. And a lot of people, just for convenience, they don't want to do that, so they want the steaks, the things that you can just cook up right then and there. And it's quick and easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I got to thank you for one thing. And that's, when I first started, because I was a vegetarian, right? I didn't know how to cook meat. I don't know how to eat meat. I was like, almost 2 decades ago, how do you eat meat? I used a burger patty, so there's ground beef. It sounds silly, but when you don't cook it or eat it or touch it, you're like, this is weird. So I kind of looked at a thing, and then the first video I saw you was something about salting meat in wet brining or breening, whatever it's called, just putting open air. Yeah, just in the fridge. And I go, oh, this guy, okay, that was good. So I go and I put, salt in this thing, and I leave it in there. Like, all my steaks are in there for minimum 2 days, about 3 to 4 days. And they're amazing. And then a friend of mine, I can't say the name of the restaurant, they're a very, very high-end, very, very expensive steakhouse. Like, you're going to pay hundreds of dollars for this. And he told me, he goes, we let the meat sit out, not just like 30 minutes to room temperature. We let it like for hours, like this stuff, because it actually stays cold and wet for quite a long time, especially these thick cuts. They let it sit out like that, and then when they sear it, cook it, and it just melts. It's melty good. So yeah, that's my jam now. So literally my fridge is just racks of meat, and then I have a huge deep freeze. It's in my bedroom. We sleep, the hum of the deep freeze puts me to sleep every night. I just know that's just full of ribeyes and tomahawk steaks. Every night I sleep good. I cuddle up, just knowing what's there in the morning for me. It's just like, yeah. So yeah, what do you call it? Dry aging or wet aging? It's in the fridge on racks.
Yeah, if it's in the big vacuum seal packs, that like the big primal cuts, and you put that in the fridge, that's wet aging. And then that just breaks it down, gets a bit more tender. It's not supposed to do anything for the flavor. It just sort of makes it more tender. And then when you open that up and you put them on the drying racks, I mean, if you put the whole thing on there and you just dried it out until it was sort of a crust outside and you cut off the crusty outside, that would be a classic dry age. But what I do is, so I guess it's called dry brining, which is I cut it up into steaks, put a bit of salt on it. I don't salt really much anymore. Actually, I don't use salt at all anymore, but that's just the taste. That's how my taste runs now. And I just put it out and just let it dry out. And so you're just having it on a wire rack and air circulating around all sides. So it just dries out and it gets, evaporates out the water, and it concentrates the flavor more. Browns so much better as well. And
that's what I do. That's what I find with, I put salt on it, they kind of swell up and get really red a little bit. And that tends to be, I don't use a lot of salt, but I have just a bag of Redmonds I use up there, and that's the same thing. That's it. But it's great. So the future is it's going to be exciting. We'll see what remains to be seen.
Definitely.
So, absolutely.
Well, great. Well, Andrew, well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. I know that your wife is there and you gotta run. Congratulations on the
Thank
new show. Congratulations
thank
on
you.
all the work that you're doing, and that was you actually did blow my mind on those little tricks. I'm like, how the hell did he do that?
Thanks, man. That's my job there.
Yeah.
That's paying you back for the
Yeah.
wet aging.
Yeah, well, it was awesome.
That's great.
When is the new show coming out, and how do people find you and see your stuff?
So yeah, we're doing I own Westlight Film, so we're actually creating the show all in-house, which is like kind of my dream come true because back when I was younger, you need to find, I've worked for lots of different networks, Discovery Channel, A&E also, and you need money to do it. Now I'm in a situation luckily where I can actually make my own show myself, and now we're in the driver's seat creatively, everything. I get to do it my dream show my way and take my time and do it right. And all I can tell you is that right now it's called Magic of the Mind. And every episode, I have a different celebrity come on with me, and I take them through an entire day of my magical world. And you won't believe what happens to
Yeah.
them and me and people, everyone they're surrounding. Yeah, I'm like because I've had a good 12 years of not doing what I love and what I'm born to do, and now being able to do that again. I've got like a good decade of magic pent up inside. So I have so much new material and new mind blowing magic and demonstrations and mind reading and psychological things that nobody's done in the history of magic. The things that I'm going to be doing in the show, nobody in the history has done these before. I'm really excited, and it's yeah. So I'm going to take my time and do it my way. But we'll start going to production next month and start filming. And
Nice.
right now there's 6 episodes, and yeah, it's going to be. I'll tell you. I'll tip this here. Not that anybody knows me or they'll see it, but one episode is called High on Magic, and I'm meeting with a very famous musical celebrity that I'm going to do magic for while they're stoned out of their mind. And it's got a twist surprise ending when they find out the pot they've been smoking isn't pot.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. Yeah, it's going to be nice. And it's probably the celebrity you think it is if you're thinking
Yeah.
about this. So
Nice.
yeah. But yeah, man. All right. Well, hey, Anthony, great. Thanks so much for having me on and great chatting with you, man. And I've got to get out to Australia one of these days. It's been on my bucket list to go there. And my wife was there years ago. She used to skate professionally for Disney on Ice. So she traveled the world and she always wanted to go back there. And she just learned to surf this last year. So I go,
Nice.
all right, maybe we should do an Australia trip. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you do and you're in Perth, then let me know. I'll cook you
Yeah.
guys some steaks.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Awesome. All right.
Awesome. Thank you, Anthony.
Thanks a lot, man.
Cheers.
Appreciate it. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. We'll see you next time. Hey guys, thank you very much for taking the time out to listen to what I had to say. If you like it, then please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and podcast. And if you're on YouTube, then please hit that little bell and subscribe, and that'll let you know anytime I have a new video out, which should be every week, if not more. And if you could share this with your friends, that would help me get the word out and let me know that you like what I'm doing. Thanks again, guys.